The spinner is divided into 3 equal parts. Let x be a random variable that represents the sum when the spinner is spun twice. Make a table and draw a histogram showing the probability distribution for x. Begin by making a table. The possible values of x are the integers from 0 to 4. The only possible way to get a sum of 0 is to spin 2 zeros. So when x equals 0, there is only one possible outcome. Because there are 3 possible outcomes to the first spin and 3 possible outcomes to the second spin, there are 3 times 3 or 9 total possible sums. So the probability that x equals 0 is 1/9. You can get a sum of 1 by getting a 1 on the first spin and a 0 on the second spin, or getting a 0 on the first spin and a 1 on the second spin. So when x equals 1, there are 2 possible outcomes, and the probability that x equals 1 is 2/9. You can get a sum of 2 by getting a 0 on the first spin and a 2 on the second spin, a 2 on the first spin and a 0 on the second spin, or 1 on the first spin and 1 on the second spin. So when x equals 2, there are 3 possible outcomes, and the probability that x equals 2 is 3/9, or 1/3. You can get a sum of 3 by getting a 1 on the first spin and a 2 on the second spin, or getting a 2 on the first spin and a 1 on the second spin. So when x equals 3, there are 2 possible outcomes, and the probability that x equals 3 is 2/9. You can get a 4 by getting a 2 on both spins. So when x equals 4, there is only one possible outcome, and the probability that x equals 4 is 1/9. Now draw a histogram where the intervals are given by x and the frequencies are given by p of x. When x equals 0, p of x equals 1/9. When x equals 1, p of x equals 2/9. When x equals 2, p of x equals 1/3. When x equals 3, p of x equals 2/9. And when x equals 4, p of x equals 1/9. Use Use the probability distribution to answer each question. What is the most likely sum when spinning a 3-section spinner twice? The most likely sum when spinning a 3-section spinner twice is the value of x for which p of x is the greatest. You can see from the histogram that the probability is greatest for x equals 2. So when spinning a 3-section spinner twice, the most likely sum is 2. Part B. What is the probability that the sum of the 2 spins is odd? The probability that the sum of the 2 spins is odd is the probability that the sum is 1 plus the probability that the sum is 3. You can see from the histogram that the probability that the sum is 1 is 2/9, and the probability that the sum is 3 is 2/9. So the probability that the sum is odd equals 2/9 plus 2/9, which simplifies to 4/9, or approximately 444 thousandths. So the probability is about 44 4/10%. According to a survey, about 62% of adults have visited a dentist in the past year. You ask 5 randomly selected adults whether they have had a dentist visit in the past year. Draw a histogram of the binomial distribution for your survey. For a binomial experiment, the probability of exactly x successes in n trials is the number of combinations of n objects taken x at a time times p to the power of x times the quantity 1 minus p to the power of the quantity n minus x. Because the survey says that 62% of adults have visited the dentist in the past year, p equals 62 hundredths. And because you survey 5 adults, n equals 5. Let x be the number of adults who have had a dentist visit in the past year. The probability that x equals 0 is approximately 8 thousandths. The probability that x equals 1 is approximately 64 thousandths. The probability that x equals 2 is approximately 211 thousandths. The probability that x equals 3 is approximately 344 thousandths. The probability that x equals 4 is approximately 281 thousandths. And the probability that x equals 5 is approximately 92 thousandths. Now you want to draw a histogram. When x equals 0, p of x is approximately 8 thousandths. When x equals 1, p of x is approximately 64 thousandths. When x equals 2, p of x is approximately 211 thousandths. When x equals 3, p of x is approximately 344 thousandths. When x equals 4, p of x is approximately 281 thousandths. And when x equals 5, p of x is approximately 92 thousandths. Use the binomial distribution to answer each question. Part A. What is the most likely outcome of the survey? The most likely outcome is the value of x for which p of x is the greatest. From the histogram, you can see that the probability is greatest when x equals 3. So the most likely outcome is that 3 of the adults visited the dentist. Part B. What is the probability that more than 3 people surveyed have visited a dentist in the past year? The probability that more than 3 people surveyed have visited a dentist in the past year equals the probability that 4 people surveyed have visited a dentist in the past year plus the probability that 5 people surveyed have visited a dentist in the past year. You can see from the histogram that the probability that 4 people surveyed have visited a dentist in the past year is approximately 281 thousandths, and the probability that 5 people surveyed have visited a dentist in the past year is approximately 92 thousandths. 281 thousandths plus 92 thousandths equals 373 thousandths. So the probability is about 37 3/10%.